certainly, so that's
Go,
what I got.
excuse me, go ahead, Mr. Bullard.
If I could, just a point of order, and it would go to Council Member Ruggiero. Do you consider the mayor's amendment a hostile amendment? Because it goes well beyond, it could be considered that under the Roberts rules. It goes well beyond the breadth and the spirit of what you asked for. You asked for a specific entity, which is hospice, and that entity, quite frankly, has a legislative history that I had recounted previously, going to 2021, and they also have submitted some things in the record. So what I want to try to do is make sure we have proper order and it makes sense. Certainly, Mr. Mayor, your amendment, goes to the spirit, but I think that it's either going to be a friendly amendment or a hostile amendment. That's one, right? And then two, I think that the way to alleviate some of the issues that you've laid out is maybe a more appropriate amendment. I'm just having a recommendation is that, first of all, the hospice amendment should be limited to this particular purpose and this particular request, right? There should be language in there. And then two, if you want to make it more of a friendly amendment, you would say that the process going forward with respect to other non-for-profits will be, the city putting together an application as well as the requirements so that other not-for-profits, could make an application or avail themselves of these ARPA funds. And obviously, we'd want to know what's still available, right? We have to look at the financial viability of it. But that seems like it would make more sense than the one that's presently proposed. But that's just my, recommendation. But it certainly would be up to, the primary movement here, which is Councilmember Ruggiero, as to whether your amendment is hostile or a friendly amendment.
So there's an introduction and second to amend it. They could always vote that amendment down. It definitely goes to the spirit of giving ARPA funds to not-for-profits.
I was throwing it out there because I believe that the legislative history is that, whether it's council, person only or council, a person, Ms. Campo Pierce or Ruggiero, there seemed like there was a consensus that you want to make this process transparent, orderly, and structured, right? So it seems like if the hospice one is proceeding, you would put that on as an amendment as to what to do in the future and to limit this precedent to this particular motion, but to strive for a transparent, open process for other not-for-profits.
Right.
Yeah, Mr. Bullard, I do agree. This is a specific resolution. It was a specific request, but they have requested this before 2 years ago, and I believe a year ago, we talked about going through and assigning the first 11 million and then revisiting this at some point. And what triggered this is the fact that the county gave a portion to the community foundation, and they just awarded money to hospice, which was half of the request, and the amount in this resolution is technically the other half of that original request. And that's all this is. I think by adding other things to it or amending it to add other things, it's just muddying the waters on this particular resolution.
Yes,
Well,
Mayor,
part of,
if I
excuse
may.
me, hold on. Part of the legislative history, though, these same not-for-profits and others were brought up and asked for monies a while ago. There was a resolution that was introduced by Councilman Henry Wilkinson that has not been disposed of yet in terms of not giving any monies to not-for-profits, so that would have to be overturned. But this is not anything different than I spoke about when it was initially introduced of why, once you give one, you better have the door open to give to everybody, because they're all equally important. So pick which programs we're not going to do for city residents, and as the not-for-profits come in, because they're all deserving, they're all great, they all do a good job. There's nothing more pressing than hunger or disabled kids. If you don't want to include them, you can vote down the amendment
If
and
I-
then just focus on the hospice one.
If I
So
may
I
have a,
think, just to add to that, is we just passed resolutions for neighbors of Watertown, United Way for the backpack program, the food, transitional living, helping the homeless, among other things. We have helped Salvation Army. We do always have an agreement with CAPC, Pivot, and my understanding is, and I could be wrong, but I think we have multi-year contracts with DPAO that helps give them maybe a better price if they do multi-year contracts. So, we do certainly help other not-for-profits.
Not to this amount and not with ARPA funds. so-
with that,
Well,
if
that's
I-
what ARPA funds are for.
if I may,
Then-
Mayor,
hold on a
with
second.
respect, if you would, please.
Hold on a second.
All right.
So we have let's focus on the amendment to the resolution. Is there any discussion on that amendment? If you don't want the amendment, you can vote it down.
Yes, there is
On the-
discussion.
On the amendment.
Yeah, on the amendment that you're proposing, basically, it's a double bind, damned if you do, damned if you don't amendment, because you're asking us to take a vote against any other nonprofit to be included into this particular resolution that specifically addresses hospice as the amendment. And I understand, but then the public needs to understand too. My vote will be no to the amendment because I think it has a place in this amendment, in this particular resolution, for the reasons that we can address those needs as they come up with specific needs of people that may address us and call us and say, hey, we have something that's going on we need help with. All right, so I don't think that we have to address and add to this resolution what you're suggesting. I get your point as to why, and I do agree that these organizations are worthy, all right? But my vote against adding your amendment or changing this resolution is not because I don't agree that those are worthy, but simply because it has no place in this resolution, in my opinion. Thank you.
So any other discussion on the amendment? Call the question on the amendment.
Councilmember Hickey?
No.
Councilmember Only?
No.
Councilmember Pierce?
Yes.
Councilmember Ruggiero?
No.
Mayor Smith?
Yes. As amended fails, so resolution 11 as amended the first time. Any other discussion on that?